I think all men in general deal with toxic masculinity. Yes. I think in Black culture, it is just extremely prevalent. And what comes with the toxic masculinity is like not wanting to appear feminine, not wanting to appear gay, not wanting to do anything that seems like you are soft or vulnerable or weak.
Hello, and welcome to the first official episode of Positive Voices. I'm one of your hosts. I'm Leah Henry.
I'm Malachi Stewart.
And we are super excited to bring you a brand new podcast to the DMV area. It's all about HIV awareness, education, and sharing stories. Malachi, are you ready to do this? Because
I'm excited about it. I'm excited for a season of podcasts where we're able to introduce real stories, but also living with HIV is not just about medication adherence, treatment, HIV. We also have a life outside of it. And so with that said, I'm excited about today's topic that affects everyone, whether you are HIV positive, HIV negative, dating in the DMV is the struggle. So I'm excited to have Jordan here with us. Jordan, tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do.
Hello, my name is Jordan Madison, and I am a licensed clinical marriage and family therapist. So I see a lot of individuals and couples in my work.
Awesome.
Yes, and I'm super excited to have you because shameless plug, Jordan and I have known each other for forever. So she's seen firsthand lay struggle of lay dating for lay Leah. Okay, so let's talk about the DMV because I think the DMV compared to a lot of other places in the U.S. has a very unique dating perspective.
It's got
I mean,
what?
Yes. It's bad, but I feel like it's bad a lot of places. It's not just here.
So I think it's unique though, but like compared to the South. So I feel like if I was living in the South right now, I'd be married. I'm not even going to lie to you. I think my man would be here.
Where should I move in the South?
I don't know because going to college in Atlanta, I just swore I was going to find me my man in college, and that didn't happen.
Well, but I feel like the college experience is so different from like the everyday like blue collar worker you might meet at the store or like the local man who just gave his life to Christ at the small church. That's where my man was supposed to be. But we are here in the DMV with these mega churches, child. And
no, because I was working for Instacart and I just swore I was going to find my man in the grocery store. That didn't happen then.
Oh, I could have told you.
Don't happen.
I told you that one.
It hasn't happened at church. Where else have I gone? Like, I'll be trying to go out and, like go to bars or go to just things that I enjoy doing. And maybe I'd find someone there that like, while I'm already doing what I enjoy doing. And that doesn't really work either. I think like you were saying, it's different in the DMV because it was called Chocolate City and because we all have this assumption that like there's just so many beautiful black people in the DMV and you're gonna find your man or your partner. It's not what I thought it would be. I'll say that.
Yeah, the math is not mathing. I mean, statistically speaking anyway, women are gonna have it harder. And then if you take it a step further, educated women and then educated Black women, Jordan, the odds are not in our favor.
They're not. Yeah. I read this book called Is Marriage for White People?
Wow.
Very interesting book.
Wait, give me like the cliff notes. What are the conclusions?
That it's hard for single Black women who are educated because we are most likely to date in our race. We want to stay in our race.
Hate that
for us to
hate that for y'all. And I just want to ask right here, is that what y'all doing? Are y'all only
me personally? Yes.
Yeah.
However, the book was talking about like, because we want to stay so focused in our race, when there are Black successful men who, and this is only for heterosexual relationships at least, when there are Black successful men, they are more likely to date outside of their race. So we're focused on them, but they're not necessarily always focused on us. So we end up dating beneath our pay grade or beneath our education status so we can still say we have the Black man.
To preserve.
And, it was a really interesting book. And basically the answer was like that we as Black women need to start dating outside of our race to then not shake it up, but kind of to like make the
balance.
There we go. The word I'm trying to look for is not happening right now. But like the ratio is so like, oh, okay, Black women, there's just so many Black women to choose from. And so Black men are like, well, why would I settle down when I have all these Black women that want me, right? Yeah. And so if we started to date outside of our race, then it kind of would even the playing ground.
Yeah, I think people have to date their preferences, but I think if you want to increase the probability that you going to like meet somebody but I know that's not an option for everybody. Anecdotally, most of the Black women I know average at about a master's degree. And that has come with issues because even when they are able to find a man, the likelihood that they find a guy that is able to make the same amount of money, bring in the same amount of income, contribute to the household in the same way is highly unlikely. And that has come, I mean, I have sat in conversations just like as the fly on the wall, listening to Black women bounce off each other, like all of the issues that comes with, because men are not always their best selves when men, especially who have been socialized to be the provider, to be in a place where like,
if they are not,
where she's bringing home the bacon, honey, and could take care of this whole house, this whole family by herself. That does something to the ego. I'm not a woman, but I can tell you, I have been in several relationships where I have been definitely breadwinner, sometimes over. And men are not across the board. They're not always their best selves when they feel like you don't need them. Sometimes I think men are socialized in ways that make them feel like they need to be needed.
In my opinion, they are.
I was going to say, as a marriage therapist, though, like, you know, I'm sure you see some of these dynamics play out in couples that you see. What is the balance? Because we talk about this like strong Black woman narrative. We also know that, like, again, Black women are the most educated group in the country. And in this area, there's a surplus of educated Black women. And so when we're talking about dating, you know, I remember being at Howard and having these conversations about the social construct. I was a sociology minor. We talk about society and the way we view the world. And, you know, men want to feel needed. But I also think with this exploration of like women and ourselves and who we are and not being what we were 40 years ago, where you couldn't even get a bank account without a man's approval. You know, we're living in this space where we have voices and our opinions matter and what we do is important to us as well. So how do you balance, I guess, you know, that traditional, I guess, way of being for a lot of men, or the way they were raised to think that, you know, I'm the breadwinner, I make the money, you know, and then a lot of men I hear feel demasculated sometimes by women's success or the way that women are. I don't need you. I want you, but I don't need you. They don't like that mentality.
Because I mean, I think the Black culture specifically, we get a lot of mixed, like we're socialized differently, right? So in traditional American culture, it's like the man is the breadwinner, the woman stay at home or whatever the case may be. That's kind of how it was in like the 50s, 60s, right?
Yeah.
We as Black women never really had that luxury per se. We always had to be out working, or we were slaves. We were always doing stuff. So it's always been expected to me, especially as a Black woman, like you're raised to do all the things, right? And then Howard and Spelman are the two schools that have like a specific course directed at like just the African diaspora and how that impacts us. And so at Spelman, all of our classes were about like being a Black woman and what that means in this country. And so if I'm socialized to, you know, be independent, to really focus on like what I'm bringing to the table and all of those things, and then I have a man who is socialized to feel needed, to be the provider, it can be hard because we're getting mixed messages, because I've been taught to be a strong, independent woman all my life. And now I'm in a relationship, so I'm supposed to allow him to lead or for me to submit. And it's like, well, how am I going to do that so quickly if I've just been socialized this whole time to be all strong and independent? Vice versa, I see in the other hand, like men are taught to be strong and to be, you know, not vulnerable and to not wear their emotions on their sleeves. And then they get into a relationship and that's typically what their partner is expecting of them. Like, hey, I need you to tell me how you feel. I need to know what's going on. And they're not socialized to do that either. So I feel like it is like we're missing the mark sometimes because how we're socialized is so opposite from how the other is socialized.
Yeah.
And then we get into these relationships and we're expected to like work out, and there has to be a balance.
Right.
And I think that comes with each couple is different because each person is different, right? So what works for me and an ex might not work for me and someone new that I'm with, or whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
And so I think the biggest thing is having those conversations around like, what are our expectations? What do you feel comfortable with? What makes you feel needed? What makes you feel supported? Like, what are things that you're expecting? What do you want our relationship to look like? What does equal look like, right? Especially if it comes to money. Is it we pay the same exact amount? No, maybe not, because that might not be fair. If I'm making more than you or you're making more than me, maybe equal looks like we pay the same percentage of our check, but not the exact dollar amount. Or we, you know, have an idea around like, I do the dishes, but you do the laundry, like having those conversations around what are our expectations.
Yeah. Well, speaking of expectations, this podcast is about HIV, and something that Malachi and I have both discussed is disclosure, and a lot of conversation in the community with people living with HIV about whether to disclose or not.
Yeah.
And I'm interested to know from a therapist perspective, because there's a lot that goes into that, right? Whether that be just like, the stigma attached, but also the mental health aspect, right? Because I'm sure, and Malachi, you can speak to your own experience about this. Disclosing can be difficult. Mm-hmm. And so, Malachi, feel free to jump in. I don't want to speak for your community for sure. So
yeah. I would say in my experience, and to share with you, because I'm interested in your thoughts. Mm-hmm. I struggled with disclosure in the beginning.
Okay.
I was horrible with it. 14 years ago, it was not happening. So I started off, I ran well at first. I was like, okay, I'm going to tell people. And I had a speech prepared.
Okay.
Like, very much planned out. I was like, this is my, I'm HIV positive. We have to use condoms. That was what that was what we were saying at the time. Wasn't no prep. And I came in negotiating the terms I was comfortable with, because I didn't want anybody to like contract HIV or seroconvert because of me. So I was like, no, you're going to use the condom every time. This is what it's going to look like if you choose. If not, I had my built-in rejection mechanism in. So it was like, if you choose to just be friends, woody whoop whoop. That I didn't like it. It didn't feel good. It didn't make the rejection feel different. And so after a couple of hits, I just bounced out of it and I wasn't telling people anything. Mm-hmm. And I talk about this in some episodes that'll come. How as time went on, I had some elders kind of pull me aside and was like, hey, baby, that's unacceptable and it's not safe. So here's what, and it was in teaching me and like helping me address like knowing what my value and my worth was, that it helped me be comfortable. I consider myself to be in a very privileged place now, because I'm very much not only out there about it, but I lead with it. Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem with it. That was reflective of a change in paradigm. Like that's a reflection and a change of thought towards myself, towards what it means to be HIV positive. I don't see myself as an untouchable. I'm not in a space in my life where I'm chasing anything. I'm manifesting. And so if it's, I don't have time to convince you of my worth.
Yeah.
But that's come with time. Yeah. And that has come with being poured into. So I'm interested in your thoughts around like, when is appropriate times to disclose? Because I always feel uncomfortable sometimes when I share my story, because I know that didn't just come out of nowhere. Like there was a lot of self-work that had to come into it. There's a lot of healing that had to go into that. And I never want to put anyone in a situation where they are being asked to do something that's unreasonable, they're not comfortable with. Right. But at the same time, what do you think about that dating? When is a good time to tell people?
I mean, I think that's really hard because one is because of the stigma, right? With any STD in general, there's just stigmas around them all, which is wild because we're all grown and we're all having sex. And so like, it's going to happen, right? So, but the stigma around it, I think, makes it super uncomfortable. And I think, thankfully, the stigma around HIV, it's still there, but it has definitely decreased prior to like how it was before in the 80s. So yes, I'm assuming that makes it slightly easier. But at the same time, like you said, that rejection, the like planning how you're going to say it, like that can be really difficult. I do think it's important to disclose for safety, but also so that you're completely honest and you don't have any like your conscience is free. Like I told this person what it was, they make the decision on if they want to move forward or not. But I, did my part. The other part though can be difficult of like, well, what if I really start to like this person and then I tell them and now they want nothing to do with me? Like that's not fun. That's not easy. That's not like and so that's where I would say disclosing early on is more helpful because at least you get it out the way in a sense. Yeah. But at the same time, I feel like you have to feel comfortable enough with the person first to tell that person. And so I don't really know what that timeline is because each person is different. That might be 2 months in. That might be, after our third date. That might be, And so I think that part depends, but I think it is important that you get it out early. Just at least for me, because I know myself, my conscience, like if there's certain things that are bothering me or I feel like a partner or someone I'm about to engage in sexually should know, I'd rather just get out the way and know that I said it. Mm-hmm. But I have to feel comfortable to do that too, right? Like I'm not about to just, any person I meet on the first date, hey, this is what's going on with me, or this is my STD history, this is all I've done. No, I wouldn't be comfortable saying that on the immediate first date probably because I'm still getting to know you. Like I don't even know what your favorite color is. But, like it needs to be, to me, I think it's a little easier if you just know, like I said what I needed to say and I spoke my truth. And then that does come with confidence, right? Like you said, like you're not untouchable. If you have an STD and HIV, anything like that does not make you this like automatic outlier or this like, and I think the more people start to talk about it and the more people are open, the more stories you hear of like, you're not alone, right? Or you thought that you were alone or you're the only person that had this situation and you're not. And so that starts to help it feel a little easier to communicate it to others.
Fun fact around that, and I'll throw this in before throwing it back to Leah, but fun fact about that, most of my relationships since I've been positive have been what we would call self-discordant, meaning like my partner is negative. That's usually where I find myself. But almost every time I've even dated, hooked up with anyone who is positive, they only share because I led. And so when you think about the balance of like transparency versus oversharing, for me, I know that that's giving people permission because it's not on their profile. I have dated people and hooked up with them for months. And then they'll bust out and be like, what drew me to you was that I saw on your profile that you were HIV positive. I've been positive for 10 years. And I'm like,
like you wasn't gonna say nothing.
You wasn't even gonna say nothing. And then that's why, like, that's a part of my spill. It's like, well, I'm being transparent because I want people to feel normalized. I've even had ex-partners because I've always been out there. You're gonna see me on somebody's panel. And I've had partners like come to me and say like, because you're out there, people are asking me like, well, are you positive? And now I had to start telling my friends and I started telling my family and I'm like, come on, come into that confidence. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that to echo. You don't know how it's going to affect people and who you're going to give permission to normalize the conversation.
Yeah, well, and I also want to bounce off of that though. And Jordan, this question comes to you because I'll be honest. Like for me personally, if I was involved with somebody and let's be clear, you can have HIV but be non-transmittable. You can definitely not transmit it. And there's a conversation about whether to disclose if I can't give it to you, right? So for me, I would be highly upset, honestly, if someone came to me and I found out we were being sexually active and you told me, even if I went and took a test and I was negative, that you didn't disclose that to me.
Early on.
And so, right. So how would you, what would be your advice to someone who might be experiencing that? Because to be honest, like I said, again, even though it's not transmittable, I would personally feel like that's a discussion that you should have with me when I'm opening up my body to you. Again, if we're going on dates, we kicking it, we cool. But the minute that you become one with me, there's a conversation that has to be had to me. So what do you say about somebody who's on the fence or has the mentality of, well, if I can't give it to you, why do you need to know?
I mean, because I've had this conversation with friends about like other STDs that are like similar in retrospect of like herpes is a virus that like it doesn't necessarily have to be transmittable, but like 70% of the population has it apparently. So like I've had these conversations where like, to me, I also feel the same. Like, even if we probably already have it or you probably have it and don't know, like if the person who knows, I feel like it's your responsibility to just be safe and let people know, because at least you did your part and then they can decide what they want to do moving forward. So if I told you from jump, hey, we've been on a few days, I'm starting to like you, I kind of could see us like moving in this direction. Before we do that though, I just wanted to let you know that I get tested every 6 months or this is what I do. And like, these have been my results. Just letting you know and giving you a heads up. I think we're sometimes afraid like, oh my God, then we're automatically going to be rejected. But to me, like I said, my conscience doesn't really let me have fun. So I feel like I would just rather it be known. And then if I'm rejected, okay, that's going to hurt. I'm not going to say it's not, but it at least lets me know, okay, well then that's just not the person for me, because I would want someone who is understanding and who is open to at least hearing more about what I have to say or understanding my experience or not immediately judgmental or cutting me off because, whatever the case may be. And vice versa. If I was in a situation with someone and they knew that they had something, whether it's, non-transferable, but I would just want to know so that I could have made the informed decision myself.
Right.
And now I'm not dealing with consequences that like I had to deal with, but like I didn't even know that I was about to be in that situation.
Yeah.
It's taking away your agency. And I think that's the thing for me, whether it's dishonesty around monogamy, whether it's dishonesty around your status, anything, don't take away my ability to decide what I want to be a part of.
Right.
So I definitely concur with that and agree. So I want to kind of go back to something y'all was talking about, because I have a question for you. I have a question for both of y'all, actually.
Here we go.
Back to this dating black men or preferring black men. Okay.
Circle back.
So here's my question. If you continue to date black men, we know what's out there. We've seen the market. The likelihood, like if we all end up 60, 70 with just our cats
I'm gonna be
and no
so
man,
sad.
are y'all going to feel like y'all held it down for the culture? Because I'm going to tell you what I'm not going to feel. Like I held it down for the culture. I'm going to feel like, listen, if it was somebody else, I don't care if you Puerto Rican, white, whatever your race, if you are going to come in and love up on this, accept on all of this, like give me what I deserve, heavy on the deserve. Like I would rather have that than not have anything, but I held it down.
But see, I don't even think, for me personally, I'm not like, oh, I'm only dating black men for the culture. I'm just typically only attracted to
That's
black
fair.
men. Like I don't see a lot of white men where I'm like, ooh, I would want like, and I'm not even around a lot. Like I work for myself. I went to HBC. Grad school was maybe my time being more around white people, but like I'm not necessarily around that. I'm not in an environment where I'm surrounded by a lot of white men anyways.
Yeah.
So like I remember seeing this tweet on Twitter that was like, what if like, your soulmate is white? And I was like, then I just wouldn't know because like I'm not around a lot of spaces where I would have been able to figure that out. So it's not even that I'm like, so my man has to be black specifically for the culture. It's also just what I'm attracted to. I do think to me, it's important to instill like black pride in my children. It's important for that to be in my household and all of those things. You could be black, you could be Caribbean, you could be African. I wouldn't even like. I would be open to like Hispanic culture as well. It's just more to me like what I would be attracted to in the circles I would be around. So that's where I feel like I would most likely end up with a black man anyways.
Yeah, well, I kind of see it like in the sense of the way I personally would never want my child. Like I would never marry somebody of a different religion, right? Because I'm not going to tell my baby you can celebrate Christmas and Hanukkah when I believe in Christmas. You know what I mean? Like that for me is a no. So in the same way that I don't feel the need to explain my heritage, my culture, my mannerisms to somebody, that's the problem. And not to say that all white people are ignorant to that, because there are white people who have taken the time to do the work to study and be a true ally. And that I'm here for. But I will not sit and explain to my parents-in-law why my hair is this way this week and another. Like, because we face so many microaggressions as Black people in general. I won't welcome that into my home. And, going to an HBCU really created that standard for me. Now, here's the thing. There are white men that like, listen, if Nick Jonas left his wife today, I would marry him.
It's always her.
Okay,
yeah,
Nick Jonas, if you're watching.
Yes. Right. If you and Priyanka are going through something, tell me, babe.
Anyway, big single.
but no, there are men of other races that I'm attracted to and that I find attractive. But often, there was a study done and it's on YouTube, but basically it showed the data of online dating users' experiences via race. And Black women were the least desired of all races. Black women were the least responded to messages, yes.
Yeah.
And Black men did not engage with Black women, were the lowest percentage of men of different races to even engage with Black women. So I think that's just setting an image to show you as Black women how difficult it is.
Yeah.
When we're talking about like the space to even date outside of our race sometimes, because I don't want to be a fetish to you. I don't want to be the woman who I like chocolate. Like white men who have approached me on dating websites have always led with something about my skin. I love a chocolate girl.
You can tell that's fetish.
Right. Immediately.
Yeah.
Because even if you truly do like Black women and you're attracted to me, you don't have to say that as the icebreaker. Yeah. That's not the first thing you have to say. So with that being said, no, I'm not like, oh, Wakanda forever. I gotta keep but I do believe in other cultures preserving their race and preserving. And then if you look at African cultures, not just Black American, but African cultures, they are very big on preserving their heritage within their countries. You know what I mean? Like I dated this Ethiopian guy and he told me straight up that his mother told him she would prefer him to date every other race besides a Black woman. And I thought that was crazy. He told me that his mom said, I would prefer you to date an Ethiopian woman, but if you decide to do otherwise, I would prefer you to go white, then Hispanic, then Black. So again, when we're talking about other cultures and the way that they preserve their cultures, it's frowned upon for Black women to want to try to ignite our men in that way. But when you look at other cultures, not even just African, but when you look at Jewish communities and you look at Hispanic communities, a lot of times you don't see them commingling with other races. And again, not that either is bad. I think, again, you should love who you love. And if someone from another race loves you genuinely and it's authentic and it's real, and that's your steez, by all means do it. But I just think for Black women, we get the short end of the stick either way.
So I'm gonna give y'all some tea.
Give it to us.
Uh-oh.
So if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. Jordan, you might not know this. I know you know, Leah. I was married before.
Okay.
My husband was white. And let me tell you how life was different. Let me tell you how life was different. Because if you know, I'm from Philadelphia. My family is very much Philly.
Okay.
And if you know what that means from a certain generation, like they are very much. My family self-described themselves as, speaking about my husband, they said, "Then why would you do that? You know we're racist." That was what they said. And there was a lot of opinions about Black people not being able to be racist, but I'm quoting them.
Yeah.
And a lot of people didn't come to my wedding celebration. But I was happy. I want to tell you, there were so many, and I was working in the field. There were so many social events that I didn't know about. So many things that were happening on a monthly basis. I have one friend who at the time was doing dinner every Sunday. I never knew about it. As soon as I divorced my white husband, I started to get all these invites, and I was like, wait, y'all been doing this? And I said one time at my first event, I was like, did y'all not ever invite me to these things because my husband was white? And I'm gonna tell you, this is the exact response. Everybody said, I was like, oh, it doesn't. Leah is keying.
I'm gagging. That's crazy.
And the thing about it is, it didn't offend me because I understand. I understand that response. I'm Black in America, girl. I get it. And at the same time, if another white, I tell them y'all will not be speaking again if another white man proposed to me, because the truth of the matter is that I'm actually approached by more white men than I'm approached by anybody.
Really?
Black men have their little crush. I don't know what it is, and maybe you could tell me that's why you're here.
Question. Ooh, sorry. It's hard to interrupt, but question for you here on that note. Do you think that Black gay culture is more set upon the hookup culture and white? Because I'm not gonna lie, I see more white gay men couples, married couples, than I've ever seen Black. And I don't know if that's attached to the fact that the Black people don't, you know how we feel about homosexuality. So give me the tea, because I'm here for this.
So I think that's a difference in socialization. Okay. So I would say this, when I date Black men, they tend to date me without goal. You have to prompt intention out of them.
Yes.
When I date white men, they have the intention already built into them. They're already and these are generalizations, but that's anecdotally my experience. So white men have the same thing. But see, I know plenty of white couples that, and when I was married, we had a bunch of couple friends. The hookup culture is the same, but they will meet each other, hook up, vibe, and still get married. Black people will meet you, hook up, vibe, and ghost you.
And won't call you.
That's a difference in how we're socialized. We're just it's normalized for them to, at a certain point, we build a family. But that's also what they see. A lot of us don't come from that. A lot of us come from broken families. And those things all affect whether a person, and because of the way homophobia shows up in the Black community, for a lot of us, long-term relationships, marriage to a man were never options. It took us so long to accept ourselves beyond what we learned in our community or from the Black church.
Right.
We didn't think about that. And so people are just dating you and sort of underdeveloped a lot of times and not being intentional. Whereas our white counterparts, they come in treating it for better or for worse, they're bringing in the heteronormative. And it's causing them to have rings and, security.
I mean, I could see that though, because I remember having a conversation, I think it was with my stepmom, around white women go to college and it's I'm getting my man in college.
I'm getting married.
Right? Yep. And I went to college thinking oh, Love and Basketball. That was my favorite movie. So I'm all right, I'm gonna find me a man. We're gonna, have Love and Basketball type of relationship. Well, maybe not that type.
Hooping for his heart.
Maybe not that part. But the campus scene and all that stuff. So I'm okay, I'm gonna go. My parents are spell house. I'm gonna find me a Morehouse man. We're gonna be cute. But that wasn't my sole goal in college. It was obviously I would like that to happen. But it was also okay, what am I doing next? Where am I going? Where's my career? I'm having fun. I'm doing stuff in my community. I had joined multiple different clubs. I had line sisters. I had stuff that I was doing. So college was also just a blast. It wasn't solely about finding a man. And then and I don't really know that many, but from what I've been seeing, it seems like white women go to school and it's you find your man
Oh yeah.
then, and that's it.
And then
So
y'all
like
married
I've
when
been
you
seeing
finish.
a whole bunch of weddings for people that are white where it's like you're 23, 24 getting married. Whereas like that was never really, now I did grow up like seeing healthy relationships and seeing marriage. But I think in the Black community, marriage is looked upon as like a milestone after you've accomplished other stuff. Like you got to get your stuff together and then you find someone else with their stuff together and then you get married. And I think for other races, they're more socialized of like marriage is like you do that young or you do this whenever and then you continue to grow
and we grow
together.
together. I got married in
which
my 20s.
I think that's fine. Now, would I have wanted to be married in my 20s? Well, I'm 28, so I still am in my 20s technically. But like, would I have wanted to be married right now? No. But I am at a place where I'm like, I would like to find the person and start to build or grow with them from now anyways, so that like that can be a thing. Because I'm very like relationship focused. And I do think that like I was reading this book, I read a lot, but there was this book that one of my line sisters gifted to me and it was called Last One Down the Aisle because she knew I was like having conversations because being a single couples therapist is a very interesting
dynamic.
It's a very interesting dynamic. And so she like gifted me this book because it was talking about how statistically it is better to get married closer to your 30s because your frontal lobe isn't even fully developed till like 25 and like all these other things. And so I was reading the book thinking it would be helpful. And after I was in like chapter 2, I was like, this is more so for white women who were pressed about being married at like 23. And that's just not where I fit in. Because it's like, you know, it's talking about all these things that you should do and that you should prioritize before marriage. Like figuring out what you want in your career, having a strong friend circle, traveling, doing those things. And I'm like, I've done all of that. Like I've obviously I can still continue to do it, but like I've traveled, I have a career, I have a job that I love, I have amazing family and friends. Like for me, my next step would be marriage or like finding that person. Whereas the book was just talking about like, you know, slowing it down and you don't have to just go from your parents' house to your husband's house. And I'm like, that was never a thing for me. Like that was never something that I wanted. Yeah. So I put the book down and I haven't picked it up since. But I think that that's like, we are just socialized a little differently.
Yeah.
Because there's not many, I definitely feel like I'm not seeing as many marriages. And I do feel like we also just wait a little longer, like Black culture in general. I think we wait a little longer, but I could see that where like the white community seems a little more intentional, whereas kind of, I forget the exact word you just said, but like you kind of have to pull intentionality out of Black men. Like, so what are we doing here? And I think especially in like heterosexual relationships with women, we don't want to be the whole, so what are we? And like, we don't want to have the conversation, but I've been having a lot of conversations with clients. Like you asking for clarity does not make you a nag. It does not make you insecure. You're literally just asking like, what are we doing so that you can move accordingly?
Reassurance. Yeah. Reassurance seems like a hassle in dating in 2020. Like when you ask people for reassurance. 2022. See, that whole pandemic.
But I will say the pandemic
made it that just... No, I wanted to circle back though to something you said, Malachi, because I thought it was kind of interesting about developmentally in same-sex couples, especially Black same-sex couples. You talked about you not fully being able to develop, and I kind of wanted you to expound upon like what you mean by that.
Yeah. So I mean, when you think about like a lot of us weren't able to be out.
Yeah.
We didn't have the privilege of, you see, you know, while people were passing notes in kindergarten or in first, second grade, people are developing and learning how to develop these low level, you know, relationships. You're getting the kinks out, you're getting the childishness out. For a lot of people my age, I'm an aberration. I'm 34 and I've been married. Most people in my age range who are Black queer or Black men who have sex with men, they tend to not, they may, if you're lucky, have had one real serious relationship or one long-term relationship before. Our first introduction usually to sexuality is hookup culture.
Yeah.
I started off on the party line, dating people much older, those kind of things. So your first interaction, and then when you get into like being a female, a lot of like femme men, you know, grew up, y'all remember on the playground, they were around the girls. Your first relationship with men, a lot of times when we talking about Black experience, probably not a father in the household. So your first relationship with men wasn't even, a lot of times that's why we don't even know how to be friends with each other. Because you didn't introduce to men as friends, you introduced to men as people you hook up with. So how to navigate friendships, how to navigate relationships that are not sexual.
Yeah.
That's not something that we were taught. And when we were taught it through the lens of a heteronormative that doesn't even work for Black women. So it's definitely not going to work for us.
My edges. Come on.
Let me be clear. I am not solely attracted to any particular man. I love Black men. I would love for my next partner to be a Black man. I'm not waiting though, because to speak to what you said, it felt good not to have to be affirmed. I didn't have to tell anybody, okay, how much time? Okay, it's been a year. No, he knew. He knew at the moment that he wanted me to go get the ring. He knew to add. I didn't have to say anything and that is a difference in culture. But I say that not in a way that blames Black men, because I ain't know either. Yeah. His behavior, I was gagging oh my God, look, he bought a house. Right. Things that I wouldn't even have known to do, or to even think about. I didn't even think about myself as what happens next. You just be so happy you finally have a relationship that's working out. Look, it's been more than 3 months. We still talking. Nobody's ghosted each other. Right. And so developmentally, that's what I mean. As much as I hold out hope, I, without blame, know that my peers don't always have what it is that I need or what it is that I deserve, but I still deserve it. And so I'm gonna have to get it however, by any means necessary. Yeah. And I appreciate people. The most important thing is knowing what you don't know. Being able to say, hey, I don't know how to navigate this. I don't know how to get this, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to be vulnerable. I'm willing to be humble in a situation, because at most I want you to know how important you are to me. If Black men, if y'all could just give us that.
Okay. Yeah, and I do think sometimes because there are men who are I saw her and I knew that's who I wanted to be with, and I was it's not like there's not intentional Black men, but I just don't think that is the norm and that is as socialized, right? Yeah. And especially if you're a single attractive Black man and you have all because when I go out to day parties or whatever, there are a whole bunch of really attractive, gorgeous Black women out. And we outnumber the men in the room drastically. So if I were a single Black man, I mean, I would hope that my mindset would still be the same, but maybe not, because I'd have been socialized differently. So I might be well, what am I about to settle down for when I have all of these options?
And I think, especially when it comes to dating in the DMV specifically, you have a lot of men with government clearances, with big checks, with nice big apartments in Arlington that are, sky rises. They drive nice cars. They have all this money. And to your point, why would I settle down when I could go to brunch every weekend and meet a new girl, a new fine girl at that, educated, got her stuff together, and don't need a single thing from me? They're this. That's why I said dating in the DMV is different, because in the South, whether a man makes good money or not, I think the culture there is a bit different. But here in the DMV specifically, a lot of successful Black people live here. I mean, let's be clear. Prince George's County has been rated for years one of the most lucrative areas for Black people. So there's money here. There's Black money here. And I think money has a totally different conversation when you add to the dating pool. When I'm a young man and I'm in my 30s and I'm making over 100K and I can wine and dine you, but I don't got to, because guess what? You're going to be at Park on a Saturday at brunch, and I can send you a drink, wink at you, and you'll be back in my skyrise apartment by tonight. And then I can do it all again tomorrow at a different club to do the same thing. And that's why I say the DMV is a totally different fishbowl of dating than elsewhere, because I think the money creates a totally different space for
you. Absolutely right. Because I'm gonna tell you something. Okay, when I was in my 20s, I was just entering into the field. I was probably making $40,000 a year, right? Barely making it, keeping my head above water, scratching and surviving. Good times. and at that time, marriage, relationship, that was a part of survival. Yeah. I needed 2 incomes. Wow. Now that I don't need 2 incomes, I'm good. I could never get married again. No. I can never be in another relationship.
I still need 2 incomes. I just feel like that's helpful and important. And the way this economy is set up,
it would be helpful, but it's not worth, I'm not in a space where if I had to choose between 2 incomes and dealing with someone's toxicity or paying my bills myself, not survival. The bill's going to get paid either way. Right, I'm going to live the same lifestyle in a marriage at this point in my life than I would not. Yeah. My lifestyle is not going to change that much drastically. And so that does inform, a lot of this bad B energy comes from I don't really need that anymore now. If I was still making 40,000,
listen. Circumstance
lighting candles, send me a man, Jesus.
Because listen, when I was broke, I dated different. I tolerated a lot more. Honestly speaking.
Yeah.
And you know what? I will say this though. Being broke in this area definitely made me understand though, like giving people grace. Because I used to be like, I can't ask a lot of somebody when I'm making $30,000 and working 4 jobs. However, I will say that gives me grace now because I do realize in a short amount of time, I've made way more money, right? So I can resonate and empathize with somebody who's on the come up, who's really trying to make it work. And I can respect that. That's why when y'all were talking about, technically a lot of Black women can't find their equals, I'm okay with not dating my equal because I have been in the gutter and I have worked super, super hard. Yeah. So I understand what it's like to be in that. But if there's no ambition attached to it, that's where we subtract.
And that's why I think that's the issue. Because like for me, being a therapist working for someone else, I had like 3-4 jobs and was like not making it. Now me working for myself, I'm definitely making more. It doesn't feel like it, but I know that I'm making more. And I think that does give me flexibility in certain things that I do. I feel like I'm able to go out more because I'm not worried about like, oh, now I'm gonna have to pay for this Uber. And I'm gonna have to pay. Like I'm able to do more. Yeah. And I'm not expecting someone, I mean, ideally, if someone made way more than me, that'd be great because then that wouldn't be as much pressure. I would probably give free therapy sessions to people because I'm not worried about like paying my bills. Right. But if I had someone who made my income or a little less, but there's ambition there. Like to me, it's not necessarily about the money. And when I say 2 incomes, I just mean 2 incomes in general are better than one, right? Yeah. So, for me, I don't feel like it has to be like, I need my equal in terms of like exact monetary amount. I would like my equal in the sense of ambition. I'd like my equal in the sense of
kindness,
education, affection. In a sense.
Yeah.
Well, that too. I was going to say
manifest,
education. Yeah. Because I'm a super affectionate, lovey-dovey, touchy person. And so I need someone who like is like that. Someone who is just kind and who, if I listen to people talk all day, I need someone who like is going to make me feel heard and that I feel like, okay, like you're going to listen to me too. And so I think being on my equal and like my personality is also important. And kind of education. Like I wouldn't, obviously, college isn't for everybody, so I don't feel like you just have to go to college because, like, everyone's journey is different. But I think that ambition is important, and I think maybe because I had the HBCU experience, I would prefer to have someone that understands that, like, every October I am leaving our home and I'm going back to Atlanta for a weekend. Like, I need you to understand there's certain things, certain traditions. It's not just like, oh, you're just living your college days out. Like, it literally feels like a self-care in a sense, and like I would want someone to understand that too.
Yeah. And I want to add to that for myself. Important to have someone who is comfortable with being with someone without having to dim their light. Because when you stand in a place, and whether it's like on a public platform or not, if you're just one of those people, like, and you both are those people who have a light and you shine in the room, you're a person people notice. There are a lot of times for partners, that's hard to be with that person. Yeah. And I've had a lot of people, I've been in relationships where I have seen people be not at their best, watching you get attention that you didn't get in the beginning. And it's not even about like sexual attention or people trying to holler at you, but just even watching you shine, watching you grow in your career. That doesn't always feel good for people. And that's something that I definitely look for in a partner. Like, how you going to handle this? Are you secure enough in yourself to know, like, are you the type that's like, that's my baby right there, go ahead? Are you like, okay, well, now you think, who in your inbox now? Those are things I watch for.
That's real because, I think there's this conversation going on TikTok and social media about like, does your partner really like you? Like, do these men like you or do they like to have sex with you? And
what's the trend? What is it?
So basically, listen, I ain't calling nobody gay, but essentially they saying men don't really like women. They just like to have sex with women. Because they don't like everything. They don't like when your body stretches out. They don't like when you lose too much weight. You can't be too thick. You can't be that. Your hair can't be weaved. You got to be natural. Why do you got fake eyelashes on? Why do you got that? You don't like nothing about a woman except when you're in her vagina. And that's it.
I don't think that has to do with sexuality, though. I think you can be heterosexual. I think that if we think about, particularly with Black culture, right? Mm-hmm. When you think about growing up, if something was corny, you acting like a little
girl.
Right. Or other words used for that. Mm-hmm. There's always very sharp critiques on women, especially Black women, as being hysterical. Black women is like having poor emotional management. Like, stop girling, stop. Like this, the way we speak connotations, you don't like women or femininity. And I could say to a Black man, you don't like femininity.
Yeah. Well, I think it's the toxic masculinity piece. I think Black men I think all men in general deal with toxic masculinity. Yes. I think in Black culture, it is just extremely prevalent. And what comes with the toxic masculinity is like not wanting to appear feminine, not wanting to appear gay, not wanting to do anything that seems like you are soft or vulnerable or weak. So you are looking for the approval of men because
yeah, honey.
But then you're so worried about like not being seen as like liking men. So like you do certain things when you don't want to be judged, or you want your boys to feel like that's cool. But like I could understand that. Like I do think there are like men out there who do care genuinely about Black women. Yes. But I can see that point of you only really care or you want to have sex with us, but you may not actually want to deal with all that comes with being with us or loving us, or the responsibility of caring for someone, right? Because it's one thing to have sex with someone. It's another thing to date them, to be intentional, to care about their feelings, to listen to them, to, question yourself. Hey, she feels a way about this. Is there something I could have done better? Like people are not necessarily taking that accountability. And then to be intentional and to be in a serious relationship, there is a level of vulnerability. And I feel like for some men, that can be really scary because it's like, I don't want to seem soft. I don't want to do this and that. And it's this idea of like you having to be tough. And there are some women who I do think contribute to it. Like just because we're not males doesn't mean that we don't feed into toxic masculinity, because there are women who have been like, he's too soft, or he was telling me all this and I don't need all of that. Like, or he's not being man enough, or he blah, blah, blah. Like, so I think that it's just a really like, it's a lot of like nuanced and tricky. I don't know. It's just a lot because like it's so many different messages that we get. And then like for me, I would love someone who like expresses their emotions in a healthy way, because I've had partners, I've had people who like had a lot of emotion, and I don't think there's anything wrong with having that, but how you express it. To me, I see that men are always taught to either be happy or angry. Like y'all not socialized, or it's not acceptable for y'all to be sad or scared or hurt.
Absolutely.
Or, any of the other emotions I can think of. It's either like you're either happy or you're angry. And that's the only time those are the only emotions you can really have. And there's like so many spectrums of emotions in between that.
Absolutely. And like I've dated trans men.
Mm-hmm.
I've actually dated women that I guess the community would call them studs, more than masculine women. You know what's crazy? I actually probably get hit on by more like studs than anything else. Like it's so crazy. And like a lot of times it's like, sometimes it's like innocent flirtation, but sometimes it be like serious. Like I had to tell you off camera something the most recent way. This girl pressed me. I was like, clutches my pearls. That shit didn't press me like that. And I love women. I, can't relate because women, particularly Black women, have always been home for me. I attribute those experiences as like when dating trans men or dating like women who are more like masculine. I'm like, it's like dating a man with emotional intelligence. That's literally how I describe it. That's
what I would assume.
I would not be surprised if I married a woman or a trans man.
Really?
It would happen. Yeah. It would. That's totally not in the range.
Straight. Obviously, like I would assume if you came with some masculine energy, but then also like, I don't know, you were socialized to not be all worried about like, oh, I'm talking about my feelings, they're gonna think I'm soft. Like that makes sense. Where it's like a man, but with the emotional intelligence. I could see that.
I would believe that because I would like say that about women, but all the women couples I know, they argue like dogs and cash chow.
So that's true too.
Be like, boy,
I will say that.
I like it. I joke with my partners. I say I communicate like a lesbian. I don't care if we're arguing, we're talking. And we're not going nowhere. I tell you what else. They may argue, but they be still in that relationship.
They do.
They still in this household. We ain't going nowhere because we in love. Is that toxic? I don't know, but it's what I want. You love me.
I mean, but that's fair because I do feel like we assume arguments are always bad. And sometimes an argument or a conflict is not a bad thing. Like we're two different people coming from two different experiences, two different backgrounds. We're just not going to agree on everything. Yeah. So sometimes an argument is like, I'm learning more about you and what works for you. And then you're learning more about me. To me, arguments are going to happen. It's more about like, how do you repair after the argument? How do we come back after that? So I can see that.
And learning myself, right? I felt like, why it's, relationships are different for me having been married. I didn't know how selfish I was till I got married. Because when you are legally binded to someone, and now it hits different. It don't care how long. I don't care if you've been together a decade, it hits different when my legality, when the legal's tied, when my bank and all that tied in.
Right.
When if I leave, you talking about half, what?
Yeah.
Like that hits different. And like when every move that I make, everything that I do in my life, even coming home from work and stopping at a happy hour with coworkers affects you because who's gonna be there to pick up the dogs? You gotta let your partner know. When everything all of a sudden, now you have to involve another person because your lives are intertwined. You do realize how selfish you are. And you do see things about yourself that you might not have seen about yourself in other places. So sometimes the argument is about you having to come to terms with things about yourself that's like, oh, okay, I need to stop that.
Yeah, no, and I will say this because we do gotta go, but I will say that like I've learned over time, like I used to want to be married. Like Jordan met me at a time in my life where like I thought I grew up in Texas, Bible Belt. I grew up around those white girls with the intention of you go to college, you meet your man, you're married, and you have a kid by 30. And that was like my ideal life track when I first met Jordan straight out of college. And I was very depressed at the time. That was not what my life looked like at the time. And after spending some time with myself, getting some therapy and getting to know me a lot better, I realized like that's not the lifestyle I want. So much so that I want separate bedrooms from my spouse. I'm very big on that.
I don't know about that. I don't think I could do that.
No, well, it's not that we necessarily will sleep not together. It's just that we have our own space and we can retreat to that at any point. Of course, I would like to sleep with you, but sometimes I don't. I'm a very only child. So I have only child syndrome a lot. And you speaking about your selfishness, I think being married would teach me very quickly about how much I love my own space. So, anyway.
And that's what I'll say. I will say, like I just said a little earlier, being a single couples therapist sometimes gives me like a very interesting perspective. And so it just reminds me that even though there's times where I'm very sad about my singleness or like wanting a partner, wanting that companionship, I'm also reminded like I have the freedom right now in my singleness that like even though I do want a husband and I want kids down the line, like I need to just enjoy the season that I'm in. Like I just took a solo trip for my birthday that I mean maybe I could have done when I was married too, but like I would have had to like ask questions and be like, is this okay? Like I can just do as I please right now. And so I think that's the biggest thing is just reminding yourself like at any stage that you're in, there's always pros and cons and just trying to really focus on like being grateful in the season that you're in, even though it's not always easy to do. But
come on, preach and close us on out. Give us a word, Minister Madison. No, Jordan, let people know where they can follow you, where they can book appointments, any information they need to know about you.
So right now, I'm not able to take any appointments because I am depleted, but you can follow me and learn more about me at Therapy Is My Jam on Instagram and Twitter. And my website is also therapyismyjam.com.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. And of course, we have resources. Listen, this is just the beginning of Positive Voices. We're having real conversations with professionals, people telling their stories. So this season is going to be amazing. Thank you for joining us and a lot in store. We have a website. We're going to tell you every single episode where you can go for resources, where you can learn more and how you can get connected with resources in your jurisdiction, wherever you are in the DMV. Malachi, tell them the website.
So the website is dcenshiv.org/podcast. When you go on the site, we definitely want you to check out the podcast, but we also want you to be interactive. So if you can take the survey, if you can let us know what you're thinking about the episodes, what things you want to see coming up, what things, hopefully there'll be another season for us to talk about in the future. Listen, talk back to us. We definitely want to be interactive. We definitely want to hear your voice. We want you to be a part of this. Positive Voices isn't just a space for us. It's also a space for us to hear the positive voices around us. So please engage us on the website.
Yeah, actually, yes, absolutely. And use the hashtag Positive Voices because all season long, we want to hear from you. So use the hashtag Positive Voices. And we will see you next episode. Thank you so much. And go out and be a positive voice. Positive Voices is produced by Chris and Tiana. Our production team is led by C3 Creative Agency.